Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Welcome to part 3 of Big Blend Radio's Excellence in Tourism series on how to put the eye back into community through a responsible tourism plan that incorporates the 8 keys of excellence. We're your hosts, Nancy Reed and Lisa Smith. We are the mother-daughter travel team and publishers of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, as well as Parks and Travel magazine. You can see all that at BigBlendMagazines.com. Today's discussion really focuses on the second key of excellence, and that is failure leads to success. How to view negative community attributes as opportunities to enhance, improve, and enrich. So we're going to talk about that today. And we've got Bobbi DePorter joining us. She is the Queen of Excellence. She is the co-founder of Super Camp, which happens to be the world's leading summer academic achievement program for teens and preteens. She's also the president of Quantum Learning Network. And she created the 8 Keys of Excellence, which is an amazing program. Families, teachers, schools, everyone check it out. Go to 8keys.org. We're all on a mission together to get 50 million kids living these 8 keys of excellence. There are principles to live by. It's a character education and development program. It's free for families. So again, go to 8keys.org. Bobbi is also the author of numerous books, including The 8 Keys of Excellence, Principles to Live By, and her latest is Excellence in Teaching and Learning, the Quantum Learning System. She co-authored that with Barbara K. Given. So go to supercamp.com because, hey, we're at that time of year when you've got to think about and take action on where you're going to send your kids for summer camp. And also go to 8keys.org. I'm going to say that again. So, Bobbi, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Hey, it's good to have you back on the show, and very excited to also have Adam Roberts with us. He's the Compassionate Conservationist. Adam spent the past quarter century working for animal protection and wildlife conservation. He's been on our shows just like Bobbi for over 11 years now, and we're finally getting them together, But Adam has really worked in issues regarding international wildlife trade and captive wild animals. He serves on the board of directors of the Species Survival Network. He's a founding member of the board of the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries, and he's also the founder of the $10 Club, which is a micro-philanthropic organization funding poverty alleviation projects in developing countries. And he also serves as a nonprofit consultant and advisor, and he works with different organizations. Recently, we've had him on shows talking about the PAMS Foundation, also the Elephant Project. Incredible organizations. You can see that all if you go to blendradioandtv.com. You'll see Adam there. You'll also see Bobbi there, and you can listen to their past interviews. So, Adam, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me back again.
Hey, you know what? I saw your face on Facebook. Go figure. Apparently, you were hanging out at the hanging out with the National Press Club just a few days ago.
Yeah, today actually, the Elephant Project had a press conference about the Trump administration's decision to allow elephant trophies back into the country, especially from Zimbabwe and Zambia. And so we had a press conference because we've submitted a Freedom of Information Act request to the Department of Interior to try and get all the information about how they came to this decision and how they set up this new International Wildlife Conservation Council to make recommendations to Interior about all of these wildlife trade decisions. And the council is comprised almost exclusively of big game hunters, safari club representatives, or people who have been with the safari club before. So we're trying to get more information about all of this so we can expose how the administration is making the decisions they are for wildlife, or more importantly, for wildlife hunters.
So we need to look at this. We're talking about failure leads to success. So can we take this to a successful place for elephants? That's what
exactly.
We want that.
And for tourism, because once you kill out all your major species, nobody wants to go to Africa.
Exactly.
That's right.
Part of it. And so I think this is such an interesting conversation today. Like I said, I've wanted you both on a show of this nature for a long time, and we're at this point where Nancy and I realized that this series had to happen, this radio series, editorial series that is in our Parks and Travel magazine. You can go to nationalparktraveling.com, everyone, to find us, because as we travel, going on our commitment to visit every national park unit in America and also our U.S. territories and eventually the world at some point, because, we're immortal. The whole thing is to really connect people with their parks, whether you're local or if you are visiting, and to understand the importance of space, natural space, the history, the monuments that we have. So this is this part of it, and really going into communities and understanding that there's a bit of disconnect. And if you want tourism, which is a really good option when you want to lift the economy of a community, that the community has to be involved. And that really starts with youth, Bobbi. That's something that's so important with what you do. And you were just on a show with us with Stephen Graham and a couple of students and some other representatives of the Community Alliance of Youth Success, where you've been working on a mission to really put youth first in the community.
Yes, it's all about giving them their voice and a platform to listen to them, because they have a lot to say. So, both from them interacting and attending our meetings, but at the festival, having students give TED-style talks and really about, what they want to create in life. And so much of it is about service and doing good and about being a leader and making a difference. So it's so inspiring to hear them.
And I want to tell people that this is an incredible organization. You go to youthsuccessweek.org, Youth Success Week Oceanside as well. You can go there and learn about this, because this has been, a 3 to 5 year project now. I know for 3 years we've covered this week-long event that has happened in Oceanside, California. So it's changed. The first time, the 8 keys of excellence, you had each key through the downtown and all over Oceanside. People were talking about that, and it's still a really it's the foundation of this. But this changed a little bit, where it looked like the Community Alliance for Youth Success realized this is a national model that can go around the country, around the world, where people can, a community works together, whether it's the businesses, the schools, and the kids, the families, all work together to say, hey, we want to hear the youth. We want to hear what you say. But this year, it seemed that the youth said, we're taking over our own festival. We're making it ourselves.
Well, they certainly had a bigger role. Even at one of the high schools, they created a Youth Success Week club that meets every single week. And they just have these discussions and presentations and get together. So it's wonderful to hear them, what their desires are and to step up in that way. And it is a national model now that is going other places. It's spread to a community in Chicago area. And we're writing it up so others can see, what the model is, because it took us a few years to come up with what is this and what will work. Really drawing people in the community. We say leaders, and it's from all aspects, from educators to city council people to nonprofit leaders to you name it, business support the efforts. So to have the whole community come together, it sends such a powerful message that our youth are important and they want to get together and learn about what other programs are happening in the city and get to know each other.
It's important, and I wanted to touch on this before we get into the actual 8 keys of excellence, and then what it means personally in excellence, and then what it means in tourism excellence, and talk about what communities can do. But I wanted to ask you, Adam, when you think about the youth and you think about wildlife conservation and the environment, how important is that community to address in regards to getting them to be part of that role model of adopting that into part of their lifestyle?
Yeah, it's hugely important. And, you were just talking about sort of this youth success model where you were saying that kids have so much to say, right? They want to have a voice and they don't want to just be told what to do. And I think we're seeing it nationwide now, right? Kids are taking the mantle and deciding that they want to speak out about issues that are important to them. And I have found historically that the more we can reach children and convince them right from wrong when it comes to environmental protection, animal protection, wildlife conservation, the more we're going to succeed. Because, look at circuses, for example, right? We've talked about that in the past, how if we can get, parents take kids to the zoo to see animals, or parents take kids to see the circus animals perform, all because they think that's what the kids want to see, and that it's somehow nurturing or educational. But when kids get the message that this is bad for the animals, bad for their welfare, bad for the conservation of the species, and they say to the parents, I don't want to go, then the parents have no need to take them. They don't necessarily need to foist that on them, and kids can have a real say in what they choose to do. And then you extend that one step further, which is when you can instill in kids a desire to see nature and be a part of nature and experience nature. That's what they're going to choose to do. They're going to want to go bird watching. They're going to want to have time outside. They're going to want to explore. And so I've always found, setting aside all the sort of general issues of environmental education and conservation education, that the more we can do that, the more we can actually engage children and enlist them to be partners in the work that we're doing and help them get this idea that they're going to fight for wildlife and wild places, the more success we have. So every time I've seen successful conservation programs, especially in developing countries, it's been where the work that's being done on the ground for the wildlife is coupled with conservation education, getting into the schools and explaining, why you shouldn't put out snares to catch wild animals, why you shouldn't poach elephants, how live elephants will benefit your community for as long as you're alive. So yeah, I think it's essential. I think it's vital that we do that kind of children engagement and help them be part of the success that we're trying to nurture.
Well, that's it. You're doing Youth Success Week in your hometown now, Adam.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's right. Absolutely.
You're taking your task on that, but I think that's a huge part. Nancy, I know you.
Yeah, I know. I think, when you have young adults and children in your home, there's a direction that has to happen. You have to provide them with the tools they need to grow up and to be educated and to find their footing. And sometimes I think if you can block your children without knowing you're blocking them. And I think now today with the internet and everything that's going on in television and radio and all these things that didn't happen, 50, 100 years ago, that they're on it. It isn't an intelligent level, what was available at the time and speed of what you could access. And so now today, I think that children, young adults are so advanced. They have something to offer, and it's not right to shut them out. It is in everybody's benefit to let them come forward, voice their opinions, and learn. And part of learning is making mistakes and starting over. Part of learning is, oh, well, that didn't work. What do we do next? Not just shut it down. It's called, let's try again. Let's examine. Let's learn from what we did. We didn't expect that turnout, but that's what you got. Let's go look at it, examine it. It's kind of a science thing to me, like, examine it before you toss it out. Let's see. And I think that kids are right there with that. They have that open mind that's willing to investigate.
Well, I can say this. When I was a brat, I had my brat moment in my teens.
Really?
And when Nancy turned around and gave me responsibilities within the magazine and said, okay, because, otherwise I was acting out. And because my brain was moving and I'm moving and I'm like, that's just who I was. And until one of her coworkers said, who was her art director, Peter, he said, you need to give her some responsibility. And she did. And then next thing you know, I showed up for work way earlier. That was it. Everything stopped. All the shenanigans and everything stopped. And I think that's what needs to happen is, that we talked about this before with the purpose. And Bobbi, that's why I think this is so important when we talk about tourism. It doesn't happen without the kids and them having purpose and having to save the community. So I know we're going to talk about tourism and failure leads to success in the 8 keys, but I really wanted to start this dialogue about you can't do any of it without the kids.
So a lot of the Youth Success Week is about discover your purpose as a theme that goes through as well. And for that, to get to that level, they really discover and have conversations about who am I, what do I value, what do I stand for, what do I want. And when we've met with kids and had these conversations going, so many of them have said, we're so busy in school, we haven't taken time to think about who am I or what do I want. And so having that conversation and supporting it and having them really respond and get excited about, wow, somebody's interested. And this is what really is important to me.
It's true. It's true. And I think it's an exciting time. It's a scary time for a lot of us looking at what's going on in the world, but it's a time to embrace this and work together. And it's a time to work with the youth. And so let's talk about the 8 keys of excellence, Bobbi. What I want you to tell everybody is, like, you came up with these 8 keys. Like, what inspired you to say, hey, I'm going to create 8 keys of excellence? And why?
I know.
I love the number 8, infinity. But,
yes. There's a lot of symbolism for 8. There is. And it's been, 35 years now that we've had the 8 keys of excellence, and really looking at, what is excellence? And we sometimes define the difference between excellence and success. We want success in our life. Success is often achieving a goal or achieving something, and excellence for us is more this ongoing essence of who we are. It builds our core inside and guides our decisions. And people, when we live the 8 keys of excellence, they trust us because they know who we are and what we stand for, and that they know that it's, for good and for positive.
And so the 8 keys, I know this is a foundation of super camps, so parents, listen up on this because it's cool. It's been a part of Nancy and our lives. We're proud to be ambassadors of the 8 keys. It's something as we travel the country, especially when we're on the road for 3 of those 3 crazy years. Can I just list that? Failure leads to success. We could put that on there, but it wasn't failure because I don't look at it as that, because we come back and now we've know a platform for really getting down and dirty with it. Yeah.
We learned. That's success to me. We learned.
But we never really, we knew that we would be gathering stories of the 8 keys of excellence and, stories of integrity and failure leads to success from individuals and communities. But we never saw it as a dialogue for tourism until this one day where they were like, you need to stand and talk right now to, these groups. There was a wildfire in the community. I know a lot of you have heard the story of this before, and this community went through a lot of stuff. Government shutdowns, wildfires, right outside a major national park. The communities were fighting. And the only thing we could really go in with, other than really knowing a background of tourism and tourism marketing and understanding how to look at a town from a visitor's eyes and what to say, get rid of this and do this kind of deal, was that when a community is fighting, is you need to have a dialogue. And the 8 keys of excellence, I know you built it for kids, but we went, you all need to learn some of this. Yes. so with that, it really became this thing as we went to different communities, and we still do, is to communicate, do you have integrity as an individual, as a business owner, service provider, and as a community? And we talked about this before, Bobbi, last month, about integrity being a sense of place and a sense of identity. But what I'd like you to do is to talk about each key. We'll do one at a time, where you say what it is personally, and then I'll do the tourism side, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of failure leads to success. So let's start with integrity.
Yes, we define integrity as matching our behavior with our values. So it's demonstrating our values in everything we say and do. And when people see it, it's a demonstration of the integrity.
Adam, you know all about that. You would, I know. Like, Adam, there's just, I have to speak with good purpose here, because there's nothing that's going to get by him on anything. I remember one of the very earlier interviews with you, Adam, talking about going to all these environmental conferences and even CITES and, all these big meetings and conventions, everyone getting together to save animals and, their habitats. And then you're watching them eat things that you're like, well, if you're really an environmentalist, what are you doing eating this? I remember so many times over the years of you standing up and saying, well, then why are you doing this? Like, calling them out. So I just want to point that out. There's match behavior. Absolutely. In tourism, what we came up with, and again, this is adopted from the 8 keys of excellence on a personal level, but you can't do it as a community if you don't live the personal side. But in tourism, we look at, and community is, integrity is provide a sense of place, define your community identity, and showcase its positive values. Okay, so Bobbi.
I like that, because, I'm sorry, just the students, we talk so much about who am I, what do I value, what do I stand for? It is that identity that really creates that.
Adam, isn't that the same thing in wildlife? And
absolutely. And I think, you said it right. When I read those 8 keys to success and excellence, I was thinking less about kids and more about the lives that we lead as adults, and especially in the world today, where we're so lacking in these kinds of aspects, these personal attributes that make us, speak kindly to one another and think positively and act with integrity. So I just want to say, I got a lot out of it personally, not just being a parent and thinking about applying these sort of life lessons to how I raise my kid. But yeah, I think, in integrity, I was thinking about that as well. And you raised tourism, just about how communities self-identify when there's wildlife involved, or just protecting the environment and the integrity of the community, right? So you could have communities that are actually, in my opinion, lacking integrity when it comes to wildlife protection or environmental protection, conservation, and the way that they perceive the natural world. And when they act without integrity because they want to exploit, it's a blight on those communities, right? So you think about the Faroe Islands, where or the dry fisheries where they kill dolphins, right? And that becomes the cultural identity for those folks, where they're associated with waters turning red from the blood of these dolphins being killed. And that's not, I find that lacking integrity, because it's lacking a respect for the natural world. And so the whole community gets tied up with this concept that's what they're about, and it lacks integrity. Whereas there are other situations where they change, and this comes back to a little bit of the way that we evolve. Thinking about in places like Sri Lanka, where you have turtle poachers, how you have all these amazing turtles in Sri Lanka, and it's breeding ground for endangered sea turtles. And people change, they grow over time because they want to have not only a cultural identity that's positive, but a cultural integrity. So instead of having sea turtle nesting sites on the Sri Lankan beaches and having people poach those turtles, they become protectors. These people evolve and they decide they're going to protect the turtle eggs. And that lends this sense of integrity for the community, and it gives them a sense of community pride, and that benefits tourism because you have more turtles and people are willing to come see them. So I do think those things are integrally linked.
Well, just even to go on the money side, because lots of people go on the money side, so I'm going to go there. When you have something that's rare that other people do not have, and you destroy it, as in hunting or fishing, whatever, in big nets, and just killing without responsibly watching what you're doing, overfishing your waters, killing out everything. Okay, you have something rare. When you're talking sustainability, you just missed it. You missed the mark. So that's a one person takes all kind of concept. If you're looking at providing for children in the future and providing for wildlife and nature, even historic buildings in the future, if you're looking at, let's tear all those old buildings down because somebody bought the land, you are not sustainable. You're a one-hit wonder. And that's not what the world needs today.
Well, that's okay. One-hit wonder goes back to Bobbi on success is not a one-hit wonder. Or excellence, I should say, not success. Success is you get to your goal, but excellence is, if you're going to be a one-hit wonder, it's got to be your lifetime.
And it is. It's a way of being. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. And I just say this, look at Las Vegas. How many people now go, we wish we could go back to the old, Stardust Lounge where, the Rat Pack used to play, but now they tore it down because they kept needing new, when they forgot what they actually were. They didn't hold on to what they had. And, it's like now, and Vegas is changing now. Failure leads to success. They're changing their models. They're changing their model. They really are working towards a different landscape, and they've had to because competition in casinos, but also becoming more family inclusive, looking at going back to the arts more. And so it's interesting how we all have to change with the tide, right? But we don't want those red tides, Adam.
But they have more people living there than visiting, so the equation has changed.
Yeah, and that's part of a good balance. It's part of
like,
a good
do you want to live here?
Right. So let's go to the second key of excellence is failure leads to success. Make lemonade, I say. But Bobbi, in personal life, I know we'll get into this deeper, but for the personal life.
Well, we say learn from mistakes, and such a powerful message that we view failures as the feedback that we learn from, because it's, it is the information, and to consider that information a gift of, it's almost like, hey, congratulations, look what you learned, from doing it. And oftentimes we tie failure into our own personal failure of emotions, and then we have maybe shame because we didn't achieve something we were going to say that we would achieve. And those types of emotional feelings can really stop us from trying. And if we don't try, there's absolutely a zero chance of achieving anything if we're not trying and doing something. So, it shuts us down. So turning that, really looking at failure as the gift, and then what do we learn from it? And when we learned, we grow and we try again. So we wanted to keep taking actions. And of course, we always hear that some of the most successful things that people have done, they've also had the most failures of things that didn't happen because they move quickly. It's like they're just moving forward. I always say it's like it helps us to move forward rather than stay where we are or go back. It's like this forward movement of, I did something. Oh, that didn't work out, but what did I learn? Oh, let me try it this way. Oh, that didn't work. Let me try, what did I learn? Oh, let me try. So it's about taking action and moving forward, and really looking at the failures that happen as just external. What happened and what do I need to do differently versus the internal, oh, I'm a bad person, or, I'll never be any good because this one time didn't work. And it's that emotion that we manage, and in our state, when we can just let it go and move forward, that's where success comes.
And communities adopt that too, that negative community aspect of, there's nothing to do in our town. I will get into that, but it's really true. When we go in and talk to a room, they'll be like, well, we don't have this and that. Well, that's boring. And I'm like, well, we just walked into town, and man, this is so cool, but no, we don't care. It's boring. Yeah. And then that goes on to the youth shoulders too. That's why I think this is such an important dialogue of, the history, the nature, the youth. That's such an important part of a community. It really is. And if you put youth first, you're going to have a safer community. You're going to have a community of kids that really just go, hey, I want to be part of this, and I want to be proud of my town. Most of the time in smaller communities that Nancy and I travel to, the kids they can't wait because they feel like nobody cares. There's no park for them. There's no this. There's no that. And they get left out,
without being heard.
Or inner cities. So I think this is such an important conversation. Speak with good purpose, which led us to the 8 keys of excellence for tourism from the community drama of people stealing each other's signs and, name it. Tell us about that for individuals. I'm trying, Bobbi.
I know. Well, to speak with good purpose is speaking kindly and honestly, and it's thinking before we speak and making sure that our intention is positive and our words are sincere, and we can give feedback. Sometimes people say, oh, you're just talking positive and good about everything. No, it's you talk about the truth or what, it could be feedback, whether it's negative or positive, it's just feedback, but it is, what's the intention? Is it to build people up, or build me up, or tear me down, or build others, tear other people's down? And if we come to that place of that there is no neutral, just holding that as truth, that if there was no neutral, then it means that everything that you say, you examine. Is it positive or negative?
I'm just thinking of Adam here now. Adam is not.
Is there a neutral? I don't.
How do you do that when it comes to wildlife conservation? And it is that at the end of the day, isn't it? You're either killing them or you're not.
Right. Well, I mean, for me, that concept is something that I've had to employ for all these years because, I learned early on just being combative, negative, antithetical to what someone else was saying, even if you hold divergent views, doesn't really get you anywhere. And of course, again, it's like everything in the country today, right? Everybody's so entrenched in their team, their side. It makes it very hard if you're not speaking positively toward one another. to advance a cause. You don't actually move forward or get anywhere. So it was something I learned early on, that when I was, trying to make positive change for wildlife, I needed to accept that other people had different views, and those different views could come from any host of backgrounds or reasons, right? It could be that someone was brought up in a hunting community, in a hunting family, and so they just have that in their cultural history. Or it could be cultural, that they, kill animals for food. There are all these reasons that people do something that is antithetical to what I do, or different than what I do and what I was trying to advance as a professional animal advocate, but that I still had to speak with, positive thoughts and in a kind way, just to be able to, have a conversation. Because if you don't do that, for me anyway, you never get to the conversation. So, I always made it a point to, go out for a beer at these conferences with somebody who's in the zoo industry, or somebody who's a safari club hunter, and try and identify with them as human beings first, and as people, who have lives, who have children. We could all have conversations about other things. And then when it came time to talk about the issues, we could get as far as we could get, and at least do so in a non-confrontational way. And that's as good as you're going to get. But it's also going to make the experience much less stressful, much more enjoyable and productive if you're speaking with that kind of positive attitude toward one another.
I think we saw you really, on all the shows we've talked about, we get riled up, all of us, on our passion and what we care about, And the reality is, even we watched the photographer Nancy was talking about today, Thomas Mangelson, that was just on 60 Minutes.
Wow.
And he was a hunter, and he turned, and you wanted to use this as an example. Nancy started jumping in and stealing it from you.
He's in the middle of the wilderness, and it dawns on him, I actually love these animals. I love the wilderness, and I'm destroying them.
Yeah. And
well, why don't I just get a camera?
Yeah.
And he's a brilliant photographer, and he made that switch, and it was kind of, he found it on his own. Some people don't find that on their own. Some people need other people to show them, but he's out in the wilderness all the time, and he found it on his own that I love this, so why am I killing it? You're like, oh man, that's a beautiful, that's a beautiful elk. Look the way it moves, it's so beautiful. Boom, you're dead. No, you just killed what you love. It's a crazy thing when you think of it.
But he also, he works with Jane Goodall now, and he works in watching the behavior, because he sits out there for days and days filming these animals, and you've done that, Nancy, in Africa, and you just get to understand that. And I think that when you don't speak with good purpose, you're alienating someone, which means you're putting that extra brick of them not moving forward. If you argue, you're putting another brick. So instead of that dialogue, what you're saying, Adam, we watched you on a debate. Remember, was it a year or 2 years ago? You were on this debate, and it was televised, and it was up on YouTube. And I remember this, and Nancy and I watched this, loving this,
Oh, it was so awesome.
And I watched this one lady opponent carrying on about, if you kill an elephant, it's going towards conservation of the elephant. And she was like mean. And some of the things that she said, I was like, that's out of line.
Well,
and
true.
No matter what, you just kept to exactly the point. And you didn't retaliate when she was not speaking in good purpose. And I was like, I don't know if I could be like that core strong of not like just, saying something back to her. And it was a really good lesson. I think Nancy and I watched it more than once, just out of a lesson of speaking with good purpose. Because if you're going to attach yourself to a cause and to your purpose, then you need to do it with your purpose, right? And you really, I'll never forget that. I will never forget that debate.
Spectacular.
Yes.
I must say. And
well,
there's body language involved too.
Yes.
Well, if I could just say to that quickly, take a half an hour and watch C-SPAN, watch the coverage of the United States Senate sometimes, and you'll see where that emanates, right? You'll see the example that they set, because people will be in a very substantive debate in the United States Senate. It'll be a very heated debate. You can have the furthest, most leftist progressive senator and the most conservative senator, and they always refer to each other as their friend. I'd like to remind my friend from Connecticut. I'd like to ask my friend from Idaho. They always refer to themselves to each other as their friend. And that's part of it. It's about setting that tone that they can be on opposite sides of an issue, but there's only 100 of them, and they have a very special club of people, and they want to treat each other with respect. And of course, there are times when that breaks down. There's no question about that. Or they get in front of a TV camera and they say something snippy. There's no question that they're imperfect, to say the least. But when they're in the Senate, it's usually fairly civil, and they always use that phrase, "my friend from Ohio," because they want to set that tone in the way that they speak to one another.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, it's an interesting way to get listened to, because if you come off really, antagonistic, nobody's going to listen.
Exactly, and I want to go back on the tourism side of speak with good purpose. We say be positive, keep your community story and all communications positive. Just like you could walk into a restaurant, talk to a waitress, and she says, "Oh, there's nothing to do in this town." That means the community has not communicated. Community and communication go hand in hand as far as I'm concerned. And if we're not all in the same boat, that's going to happen. You're always going to have a percentage who's not on the same boat. They don't want to be, and that's that. But when it comes to the community and welcoming people, and it's like, you welcome someone in for dinner, and then you have, crazy Uncle Joe in the corner saying, "Get out." It's like, you can't have that. So that, right, to me, speak with good purpose is when it comes to tourism, everybody in the community needs to connect. Everybody needs to be on the same page as best as you can, and be positive of your community. And you should be. If you live there, you should be. That's the reality. And if you don't like something, be part of the change, right? Bobbi, man, we're just going to do failure leads to success in each key today. What's happening?
Well, it is that alignment, because that alignment sends such a powerful story out there, as well as, when everybody is living around something. It's how expectations and how we interact with each other is known, and people trust it because it's known and it's out there.
Wow, I love this. I love this conversation. I think it's so important. This is it, attention to detail, we say in tourism. But Bobbi, this is it. This is one of my favorite keys. Because, like, if I have an idea, I'll call everybody at one night. Like, everybody pick up your phone now. We got to do this now. You know that, Bobbi.
Getting excited about it. And this is it, has energy around it. Yeah. And it's making the most of every moment. There's so many things that pass us by because we're worrying about something that needs to get done that's, and you're not doing it right now. But, when you're focused on what's in front of you, who's with you, what are you doing, that it is about focusing our intention on the present moment.
We say in tourism, attention to detail, because this is it. You're in that moment. Someone arrives into a hotel room and they walk in, and that moment is they could have been on the road for 8 hours. They walk in and the room's filthy, or I don't want to go into that because we know about that. Yeah. Then Adam, I know, and Bobbi, we both are world travelers, right? We've all had those moments of like excitement, and then it's like, oh no. But we say as a community getting together in a tourism thing, it's attention to detail. And so rather do something small and really good, stay focused and tuned into your community and visitor needs. So it's about staying focused, because focus is key. Adam, on the wildlife side, because now this conversation is going into all aspects of this, which is great. This is it. That has got to be almost daily, like even now, the press conference you're in, we're going in now. It's like another bill has changed or been taken away, a protective status. It's like you can't just dilly-dally. You have to move now and be focused when it comes to wildlife.
That's right. And innovate. You have to be able to accept what the moment gives you and see how you can move forward. So sometimes you have to be nimble in terms of how you react to things. God knows there's an assault on wildlife at the moment with this administration. And so, you have to really focus on, being in the moment and saying, what is the challenge that we confront now? Well, you may be working, for example, for many years on one issue, and then all of a sudden realize, well, there's no chance that this Congress, for instance, is going to take up that issue. So we can keep banging our heads against the wall, but it's not going to make a difference because you don't have a sympathetic legislature. But there's an all-out assault on the Endangered Species Act. Well, maybe we need to refocus our moment and say, this is it, right? The Endangered Species Act we have to save because that could go, and we certainly don't want to have a 2-year period where we don't get the thing we've been working on and trying to advance, and we lose a hard-won law that's been on the books for many, many years, or pieces of it. So, I think you have to be able to focus on what's happening at the moment and try and make a difference and be nimble in the way that you approach all of these challenges. And it goes, quite frankly, for the tourism side as well. You were talking about sort of wanting to be, wanting not to be disappointed and to have kind of a wow factor. And I think about that a lot as well. What do you want people to remember when they come to your community, especially if there's an opportunity for some sort of ecotourism adventure, and you want people to leave excited and inspired and wanting to talk positively about their experience, not wanting to leave and say, oh God, I went to Cancun and all I remember from the whole trip is this chimpanzee on a chain and some guy taking pictures for $1 a piece. And, it just happened to me. I was in Marrakesh for a meeting a couple of months ago, and there was this huge bazaar, the souk, the market, and at night it's all lit up and everything is magnificent. And you can buy all these different wares and things for your home and gifts, and there's food and all of these vendors. And it's this really incredible experience, but they still have people playing music for cobras to dance, and the cobras, of course, are malnourished, they're starved, and their mouths are sewn shut so they can't bite, and that they're treated cruelly. And then you turn around, and there's some guy with monkeys, macaques in diapers on chains, and they're charging tourists to take photos with these monkeys. And so I've left that experience in this incredible place with all these incredible things happening. And that's my biggest memory, is just how disappointing it was to be there, be so excited to be there, and then just feel deflated and disappointed by the vulgarity of what they had on display. And that is what I will always remember most about my experience in Marrakesh, which is unfortunate. And, if people were saying to me from a tourism angle, hey, I'm thinking about going to Marrakesh, do I recommend it? Having been there, my answer would be no. And here's why. And I would say, go somewhere else.
Because that's exactly it.
Because when you go into the wilderness and you get to see animals in the wild, there's nothing more beautiful.
I want to back this up on now, Bobbi. Remember, I said we had a "This Is It" story, and I want to apologize to listeners because we've said this story a couple times on the show now, but it really does go with Adam, with what he's saying about animals being chained up and the cobras and everything. It was back in March. We spent a day out filming here in southern Arizona. It was amazing. We found a new place on the Juan Bautista de Anza Trail. It's not new because he camped there with 200 people back in 1776 when they were, making their way through from Mexico to basically create here. You're going to have San Francisco, the Presidio, and all these people walked, peacefully, across this side of the world from south of Tucson to San Francisco. And I'm obsessed with this Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail. And what was really interesting to me is we found this new place that a ranch, cattle ranching company said, we're going to donate this land to the community. So we're talking about the community and understanding tourism. It's out on the Nogales border, and it is in an industrial park now, and they have created, Adam, you should see this, you would dig this, and Bobbi, you would dig this because of what the community did. The kids are involved. They rehabilitated this wetland, and they work with the Sierra Club and all kinds of organizations. This wetland, it's small, but in the middle of nowhere, well, not nowhere, an industrial area, there's this habitat. And I saw this online. I'm like, we've got to go. We went down there early morning. There's herons, there's ruddy ducks, there's every water fowl that you can imagine. And they have this reed that is kind of invasive, but they maintain it because it's what it is now. And it creates a shelter between the industrial side. Like you can see trucks load things on the right-hand side, but on the left-hand side, here's this wetland. And there's vermilion flycatchers. And all these birds and critters. And it was this magical oasis in the middle of nowhere. And a friend of ours, David Mizejewski, comes on our show, talks about creating native habitats and wildlife habitats. And he said, the one time on the show, he said, we're creating dead zones if we do not create places for wildlife to thrive. And it dawned on me, like, we can't do dead zones like we have in the ocean from all the oil spills.
Yeah, no.
And this place just brought it to life. But Bobbi, on this side, for you, we were walking through, they have all these Kachina spirit totems, all these signs, all made by kids. They are part of this project. They got to put their input into Juan Bautista and his, expedition through historically, but also the animals and the wildlife. They have community gardens for kids. The kids reenact. I mean, these are pre-teens going in and doing a reenactment every year. They call them the Anza Kids, the Anza Club. This is incredible. This little community on the Mexican border, everybody, just saying, getting along quite happily. And that's me speaking with good purpose. But it is this magical place, and it involves all cultures of Arizona, which we're talking about your Anglos, you're talking about your Mexicans, Vaqueros, you're talking about the Native Americans, the Tohono O'odhams, you're talking about everybody's involved in this. And it is this magical place. So we're there, we're astounded. So that's the first part of the story, getting to the snakes. This is it. I mean, this is it when you saw this. We were just astounded. We went off hiking and going to some other areas and filming, and dropped a friend off and went up to Saguaro National Park, just down the road from our house. And this is our favorite place. There's this little ramada on the hill, and it's one of our favorite hiking trails, and where we've made decisions on going on the tour. Whenever we make any decision, this is our place. And we went up there, and it's the same time of year that we've experienced this before, like, duh. We're up in our little ramada talking, and I'm running around filming, and there's thrasher birds, flickers, woodpeckers, everybody's there. And I'm outside the ramada, and I mean, this is like a little house with windows, but there's no glass. Like, it's like this brick ramada, yeah. And a rattlesnake goes by me, just right by my foot, and I said, hey, Nancy, there's a rattlesnake. And for some reason, we have this ability to communicate where through, like, I could be a mile away and she knows there's a rattlesnake without yelling, there's a rattlesnake. And I jump into the ramada, I say, hey, we got to go out the window. And we're like, no, so we have a stick. We always walk with a stick to give the vibration, out here in the desert, the snakes know. Well, we're like, okay, just tap it here. Well, now the snake's coming in at us. And so we had to go out the window, and it's not that easy. We have, our gear on the one side, and we had to, in seconds, communicate. I mean, this is it. Without any back and forth, we're going to get out. We both work together in such a close time for me to jump over the table thing, grab our stuff, and get her, because her back was to the window, over the side without the rattlesnake really coming, because it was at that point of doing anything. And we got down the hill. This is that moment, and I want to tell you how alive we were just in that moment of we could coexist, not harm the snake. The snake didn't harm us, but we knew, get out, don't make him freaked out, because it's obviously nesting under this place. We get down, we were so alive and so happy. And so when you think about what you're talking about, the Marrakesh area and all of that, there's nothing that I don't put snakes on a chain. Or like, what I mean?
But then I also knew they always come in twos. And as we got down to our car, which wouldn't start, so we had to get a park ranger to come help us.
And he was cute.
Yeah, he was very cute. And help us. I mean, I don't know, when in Tucson, when the sun comes out, lots of car batteries don't work, and then the next day they do. But it was interesting because I'm like, I know from many years in the bush, the snakes travel in twos, especially in spring. And as we finally got the car started and going down the road, what did we see? Here comes the other one.
Yep.
Just like the other one.
And it's so beautiful too. But then you're in their habitat, and there is a way to communicate and to coexist. And I think that's it about this is it. You're in the moment. You mess around with the snake, the rattlesnake, it's a western diamond, you're going to be in trouble. He doesn't want you to mess around. He doesn't want to lose his venom so he doesn't get dinner. and may have babies. I don't know what's going on at this time of year with that, but I know that you take their venom away, they can't hunt.
Well, I know it is. He decided that Romana was his.
I know,
or
and
her.
and it's not
Probably
the
more
first time.
her.
But anyway, so Bobbi, is that good enough for you on that? This is the story.
Well, you're very focused, it's that focused attention.
Mm-hmm.
You are definitely in the moment when that happens.
Well, if you weren't, you're in big trouble.
But also this community that got together on a place that gets really bad or negative attention in the mainstream news because it's on the border. I mean, to me, that's a failure leads to success story right there about this community saving this habitat and getting the community involved, these kids, to create these places. I think it's
well, it really leads to the next key as well on commitment, because just the commitment to make that happen, commitment to the environment, commitment to the community. It says make your dreams happen and take positive action and following your vision unwaveringly. And in that instance, they definitely did that. We always talk about how the keys always reinforce each other.
I know. We say in the tourism side of the 8 keys, commitment, make your community vision happen, take consistent positive action to maintain your community identity and to fulfill its vision. The next key is ownership. Bobbi, this is a good one.
It is. So many of them we always go, oh, that's my favorite, and this is take responsibility for actions. Be responsible for our thoughts, feeling, words, and actions, and own the choices we make and the results that follow. And that's one of my favorite lines is own the choices you make and the results that follow. Because I always say that there's power. It's the power key. When you take ownership from everything that you do, that's when people really trust you and respect you, no matter, whether it was a failure or a success or whatever happened. It's like when you own it and take responsibility for the results that happen, people notice.
I think this is an integral part of failure leads to success. You have to take ownership to be able to move forward. And on the tourism side of the 8 keys of excellence, we say ownership, be part of the solution. Take ownership of your community with positive and responsible actions. Recognize something. And Adam, I want to go to you on this because I know that you've been through so many countries and within villages, that want to, take out an elephant or a lion thinking this, or tigers, right? And how do you get them to take ownership of the situation and say, like, this is my situation, but I can make the right choice?
Yeah, well, sometimes it comes down to self-interest, quite frankly. It's not only about an altruistic desire to make the community or the ecosystem better and the environment better, including for themselves in it. Sometimes it's a straight up self-interest that has to be appealed to. So, for example, when thinking about communities and wildlife tourism, you really have 2 fundamental choices. You can do hunting tourism, which is lethal and permanent, or you can do ecotourism, right, which is largely based on photographic safaris and non-lethal tourism. And so we try and explain to folks that they have a sense of ownership over which model they choose, and which model they choose defines how their community will succeed or fail going into the future. And if they choose a more benign ecotourism model, then you have a herd of elephants that could live to be in their 60s or 70s. So that's a lot of decades worth of economic revenue from people coming to see those animals. And if they own that ecotourism model, they're going to be a lot better off financially, their community, their families, themselves, than if they allow hunters to come in, kill that animal. Therefore, it's taken away, not after 60 years of revenue, but maybe after 10 years or 20 years. And that money is not necessarily going back into the local community. So they don't have ownership of it. And then the second part of that model is when you decide to own it, you have to be a participant in it all, right? And you have an opportunity to be a participant in it all. So you're not just deciding that we want to stop hunting because we don't want dead elephants littering our environment, and that causes people to stay away unless they're hunters. But we actually want to be a part of the ecotourism business because we know that that's a good revenue generator for the local economy and it's a good job creator for the local people. So, we actually want to get jobs that are good paying jobs in the hotels or the eco lodges and the restaurants and, make jewelry that we can then sell to the tourists who come to see the wildlife. So there are all these ways to own the model that you choose, but then also to own a piece of the model as you start to implement it in practice.
It's true. Having led tours to Africa and to Kenya, I know that the people on the tour, they bought necklaces and they bought trinkets and they stayed in hotels and several hotels, not just one, camped out in the wilderness as a hunter. They spent more money as a group than hunters do. And then the animals lived for another day for other people to enjoy, so that community had more revenue, as opposed to a deadhead with glass eyeballs stuck on somebody's living room wall.
Yeah, exactly. You have to.
It's true.
Yeah. I want to keep moving on these 8 keys because we got stuck in the 8 keys, Bobbi. How does that happen?
I know.
It's good though. It's good
because we're flexible. That's how it happens.
I know. It's just like that's the next key: flexibility. Be willing to do things differently, and that's like key with even what Adam was just saying. You have to take ownership and then go, okay, we're gonna be wild and crazy. But tell us about your side on the personal side about being flexible.
Well, it is recognizing what's not working because we can just keep going forward and, I've always done it that way. It's always been done that way, but really look at the results and is it working and be willing to change. And I always like it especially when it's my idea, I'm all excited about something and then, I'm trying to push it through and not really recognizing, well, this really needs to change. Might be able to get to the outcome a different way. But let go of the, particular way I'm going about it at that time. So it's a lot about recognition and then letting go of the ego.
I think that's really especially important when you're in a community, and making community decisions. It can't just be your thing. And that is going 100% with how we ended up talking about the 8 keys to these I can't say tourism leaders because there were people in the tourism community there, but they were going through the community, going through this. And it was people that were not willing to change their attitudes, and they were in a desperate mode to do something, and it required flexibility. And that's when they brought us in, and we're like, okay, we'll talk. Give us a glass of wine afterwards. Yeah, and it was important. And we had to change our mind. We're like, oh, wow, it's like you're not talking individually to people. You're talking to a group about something so important. And I think it's really important. In tourism, on the tourism side, we say be willing to do things differently. Recognize what's not working and be willing to change your plan of action to achieve your community goals and vision. So that keeps you off that ego because it's about your community goals and vision, something you've all agreed to. Unless you have a new plan and a new idea, then you bring it through to the community. Balance. This is the final key of excellence, very important. And then I want to have everyone share a story of failure leads to success in regards to community and tourism. Balance, Bobbi, this is it, right?
It brings it all together. We say live your best life and define it as being mindful of yourself and others while focusing on what's meaningful and important in your life. Because being mindful of yourself and others, that is that community feel of it's not just me, and to focus on what is important and meaningful and what are the results of my actions. So just living your best life and being very mindful of it.
We say in the tourism side of excellence, balance is build a sustainable and responsible community. Consider everything that's meaningful and important to your community and steadily grow with that vision. In other words, we don't want, millions of people coming through a small town for 1 month. Balance it out. Sustainability is looking at the environment and what you have infrastructure-wise. And it's a very important thing. That's when you have people go against the word tourism. You'll go into a small community that has a lot to offer, nature, hiking, trails, campgrounds, everything. But there's going to be a side of the community that's anti that because You do a festival and promote just that festival in tourism, and then you get 20,000, 30,000 coming to a town that's not set up for that. But if people came through on a steady trickle, you'd get even more value through that financially. Everyone can handle it. It will be something that you don't have to close your door halfway through the year. You can be open almost daily, right? It's something that's balanced and something that the environment can handle too. And I want to bring this to Adam because Adam, balance, that is the key at the end of the day for the environment. And tourism plays a vital role of balance in communities and what happens not even in the people community, but the wild community.
Yeah, that's right. And I, when I think about balance, I think about the necessity of restraint. And, I've thought years ago, when I was in Kenya for my very first safari back in, I think it was 2000 when I was in Kenya, we were out in the Masai Mara and we were cruising along looking for lions and elephants and cheetahs. And we were having this amazing experience seeing all these animals. And then when we finally saw the cheetah, there were so many jeeps coming so close to these animals. And I remember thinking at that time that there's got to be some balance here. There's got to be some restraint where we are ecotourists and we want to do well for the environment. We want to protect these animals and we want to inject money into the local economy. But we're starting to cross a threshold at which we're actually doing damage because there's too many vehicles in this one space at this one time. And we're actually starting to interfere with the natural behavior of these animals. And so that's where, for me, on the tourism side, I think the balance comes in. It's the ability to show restraint. And I've heard the same tales with whale watching, that you have these whale watching boats, which are great, but sometimes they come too close to the whales and they have the possibility to injure the whales. So I think there always has to be that level of balance there so that you're looking out for the local community, looking out for the wildlife and the wild places, but also respecting all of those contingents so that you don't cross that threshold where it actually becomes a negative activity instead of a positive one.
I experienced that with the whales. I was on a whale watching, and it's like, oh, beautiful watching them. And there was an adolescent whale, and we started getting closer and closer, and then the whale got confused and started, swimming in towards the shore. And so the person on the boat, that's their job, right? Get close to the whale so that the tourists can see the whale. And so it started kind of chasing the whale, and myself and others on the boat was just started yelling at the pilot of the boat. It was like, leave the whale alone. Let him go, let him go, let him go. And it was like he thought we wanted to get closer to see it, and then all of us were yelling, let it go.
That brings us to a conversation, Adam, we had with you, but about a few months back, you worked with a company too, an organization where in England, all these tour operators are coming together and learning the fact that just exactly what Bobbi experienced, that
doesn't work anymore.
Travelers don't want that experience. They don't want to ride on, well, they think they want to ride an elephant until they realize the harm they're doing. And so they all these statistics show, just like Bobbi, like, I don't want to be the person tracking down a baby whale. That's mean. I don't want that guilt on my shoulders. You know what I mean? You don't want to be part of that as a traveler.
These tour operators, in some respects, they radio each other. Like, oh, there's a whale, and here comes the rest of their group. So a tour operator owns 5 boats. You're going to get all 5 when one sees something. Here they all come. Same in Africa. They radio the other, combis, or what do you call them in this country? I'm going vans? African vans or whatever.
I don't know.
And combis. And then here comes all the other people. So now this animal who's trying to just get dinner is inundated with all these tourists. And it gets crazy out of control. We've seen people get out of the vans and walk up to a lion kill, and we're found in a position of saying, get back in your car, and and trying to yell at him, and the animal's just trying to have dinner. Do you get that part? And do you get that part if you disturb it, that you could get hurt? And it took away the whole idea.
I want to share the tip. So when you are out in Yellowstone in this country, or in a park, and you're in your car seeing wildlife, and you see a bear or a bison's baby or something, just put your map out. I don't know if people can even, well, I suppose people use maps in parks, maybe since GPS doesn't work everywhere, but this is something we did in Africa was, like, if we saw something and we were hanging out and just watching, turn your car off, don't put the fumes out there, and get your map out, because people will think you're just pulled over to look at the map, and then they'll bypass you, and then you have your own private viewing, and it protects the wildlife. So I'm just saying, everybody, that's the way to do it. Get your map out.
Pretend you don't see any.
And even if maps aren't around because everybody's in GPS land, it doesn't work always in a park, but take the map out anyway and just put it out. Put the park thing you get at the entrance gate, just put it out, and then everybody will bypass it, and the wildlife will be happy, and you get to have your own private viewing. So I'm just saying. Okay, so that's my failure leads to success story. Let's talk about this, Bobbi. A story to share about this, especially when it comes to communities. Failure leads to success.
Well, this one was so many years ago, before I'm doing my programs, but was involved in real estate, and we were actually in San Francisco converting Victorians at the time. But we got involved in a large apartment complex in Ventura, California. It was 282 units. I got to learn the number 282 really, really well. But when we arrived, we bought the property to convert it to condominiums, and that was rather new. This is the mid-'70s. And so it was creating a lot of fear. There had never been a condo conversion in that whole county. So it was the first, and we had mostly retired people living there. So there was close to 500 retired people. And you can imagine when we walked on into the complex, that they were looking, oh my gosh, look at these business owners, and they are buying the property, and they had so much fear, like they're going to get kicked out. But they didn't know each other. It had 282 units, but people usually just walked on to the complex and went to their unit, and that was it. So people didn't know each other. But just the sense of going from people that are just quiet by themselves to, we started by talking to every single tenant, because we come from this place of win-win, and there's this assumption that, we're big business or going to buy it, to do harm to them or what that is. But just our mindset of win-win was, let's sit down and talk to them. Let's learn about their lives. What do they want in their lives? And so we really listened, and then we're structuring of things that would be a benefit. These are people that thought there would be no way that I could buy my own unit, but okay, let's work it out for them so that they can, those that want to. And if those that don't want to, let's work it out so that they feel safe. And so, we went to the city, and they said no. So it was like, okay, that's a failure. We bought the property, and the city says no way. And so then went back. We went through applications and finally appealed. And when we finally went to the city council for this final meeting, we had, I think, almost all 500 people with us. We rented buses, and we filled the city chamber, and we were down the hallways and outside the building. And all of these tenants stepped up and talked one after another and said, we want this. Don't shut it down, city. It's like, we want this. So I can go through so many failures, and the city was coming up even with ideas of, okay, one of them was, you don't have parking, and what are you going to do about that? And so I actually got the Montgomery ward that was in a complex next to lease us a strip of their parking lot. And okay, now we have the parking. So it was one thing after another of just being told no, no, no. But at the end, to have all these people, they were, taking council people out to breakfast and lunch, and they were having their own meetings that were in all these groups, and they had so much energy. It was all of a sudden, these people that were living so quiet just in their units, all of a sudden, they were meeting each other and talking with each other and going to lunch with each other and excited about something and keeping score of who's going to vote yes. And they would take their own pamphlets and go out and campaign for us. So at the end of the day, it's like, if you really listen and you really look to see what is win-win for these people, It's like, don't make an assumption that we're just, buying it for ourselves and going to abuse these people with, what we do. So it really turned out to one of my all-time, one of my things that I just feel really good about is what we did for the people, and the sense of community and joy and getting together, and just what it feels like when you walk onto a campus. It just feels so different when there's a sense of cause and community, and we're going to support each other, and just that people want a sense of belonging, and they want joy, they want interaction, they want to learn about each other's lives, and that's what it created.
I think that's an amazing story, and I think it really correlates to what you're doing with Youth Success Week too, because it was, Youth Success Week is you went to the kids, what do you want, and gave them a voice, with everybody going around saying kids are only attached to their phone. You proved that wrong. That last conversation we had on the Community Alliance for Youth Success show, everybody, look that up on bigblendradio.com, go to Spreaker.com, you'll see it. It was amazing to hear the youth say, somebody's listening to us, and we can say, this is who we are. And I think that's an important part, is when we have our idea of what's going to happen if you don't listen, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's the whole point of what we're doing with this Tourism Excellence series, is the community has to be involved. And that's the one thing we learned. Like, I laugh about our tour, the Failure Leads to Success tour, but it's not, and it's not over. We're going on a road trip fall. It's called the Hola to Hi Y'all tour. We're going from Tucson to Kentucky. So that's what it's called. But it's really about that. We learned that it was really this dialogue that has to happen in the communities, and for them to really get on the table what everybody wants. It's such a huge, huge, important thing. Adam, on your side, Failure Leads to Success, is that very similar when you go in with wildlife conservation, like, hey, stop, getting in there? I remember Nancy, when, she first went out there and, put a lion up on a screen in a hut, and somebody speared it.
Yeah, that was great.
Well, has it changed that way in regards to that communication?
Yeah, well, so working in animal welfare and animal protection and wildlife conservation for 27 years, I can tell you I've had my share of failures. It was definitely not an easy road, but so I can tell you quickly sort of two examples. One where failure generated the need to change and therefore succeed, and one where failure by happenstance led to success. So the first, the failure, sort of forces you to change, to innovate, to be more flexible in your approach. For years and years, elephants were killed for their ivory, right? And in 1989, as most people know, there was a global ban on the commercial trade in elephant ivory, because so many people saw all of these pictures of slaughtered elephants with their faces literally sawed off to get the ivory. And in 1997, after many years of Southern African countries pushing to overturn that ivory trade ban and get some renewed ivory trade, they succeeded. And I was just telling this story the other day, where I came back from that meeting, which was held in Zimbabwe, and I was at lunch, and my boss was there in the whole office, and she kept asking all these questions. And the sort of big question of the day was, how could we have lost, partially anyway, the ivory ban in 1997? And she said, didn't you show pictures of these dead elephants with their faces hacked away for the ivory? Because in her mind, you just kept doing that, and people, of course, would see that and would be so repulsed and vote in favor of elephants and against ivory. But the fact of the matter is, they had their own pictures, in their case, starving African children. And they made the claim that there were too many elephants in Zimbabwe, they were trampling crops, farmers were losing their livelihoods, and people were starving. And so that changed the dynamic, and therefore led to our failure in maintaining the ivory ban. That necessarily led to us changing our tactics and realizing we can't just do that same thing over and over again. We have to do community-led conservation. We have to start talking not just to the Department of Interior, but also the State Department about the involvement of militarized professional poachers that are backed by terrorist outfits like the Lord's Resistance Army and the Janjaweed in Africa. We had to start going to all of these new tactics in order to succeed. And while we haven't necessarily in all these intervening years increased the level of protection for elephants, we haven't also lost any more ivory trade since. So it really, that failure in 1997, because the tactics on the other side changed, forced us to look at the way we had done things, and therefore we had to change as well. And then on the other side, I think about Ringling Brothers Circus, and a number of animal organizations sued the circus for violating the Endangered Species Act because they used the bull hook to beat their elephants to train them to perform. Asian elephants that are in the circus are protected under the Endangered Species Act, and therefore it's a violation of the act. Well, the case went on for more than a decade. Ultimately, the animal organizations that sued Ringling Brothers lost on a legal technicality about the standing of one of the lead plaintiffs, a former Ringling Brothers trainer, and the case was thrown out. So we failed. We failed to get Ringling Brothers on the hook for violating the ESA. But because of that legal case, information was gotten through the legal discovery process, and that included testimony of people saying, for example, that there was blood all over the circus floor from the wounds that the elephants had by being hit with these bull hooks. And all of that information started to lead to this groundswell of support around the country for city ordinances that banned the use of the bull hook. And so as those municipalities banned the bull hook, Ringling had to leave their elephants at the county line or the state line because they felt they had to use bull hooks to train their elephants. If they can't bring the bull hooks in, then they can't bring their elephants in. And ultimately, if they didn't bring their elephants in, they lost money because people wanted to see the elephants and stop going to the circus. And ultimately, Ringling stopped traveling with their elephants and then shut down completely because the circus was no longer a profitable model. So even though we failed in our legal lawsuit against Ringling Brothers, by happenstance, we ultimately succeeded because of the information gleaned during the case, put Ringling Brothers ultimately out of business.
Oh, that story is incredible.
So true.
And the bull hooks, a lot of us didn't even understand that. We just thought, hey, for us, I was like, why are you using animals?
Right.
That's it's such an important statement you make too, because we talk about this on shows with you all the time, that here we just fought this issue and then it comes back again and the second time it comes around, oftentimes it's stronger, and you still have to hey, everybody remember this is why, but people are already familiar. So every time we have to, like the EPA and all that, we've done that recently, but it's you've already built a community. So that's what tells me, from what you've said, Adam, it's like you have to build the community for success.
Right.
You really do. You really do. Bobbi, I'm sorry about bull hooks on the show with you. I know that's not a, it's not
That's horrible.
No.
It's a sad topic, but it's.
Then I have to say, of all the communities we visited, when they fail in their tourism agenda is usually and almost always because they didn't get input from the community. They have a group of people who are on the board of this or that, all self-interest because they own a company that's either a hotel or this or that. What they don't do is look at what the community wants, and so they make mistakes in what they expect to happen, and their expectations are always so out of line. It's astonishing to me about failure. It's very related to your expectation of what you think success would be, and their idea of success is so out the window. And you want to say, where'd you get that idea that you're going to get 50,000 people, and can you even handle 50,000 people? So I would like to say failure leads to success is not thinking something through, not having input from the entire community, which would include everybody, the youth, the city, the business owners, not just business owners. Can never just be business owners.
I would like to just propose that a lot of communities get together and look if you're qualified for becoming a national heritage area. I know the funds are scarce when it comes to the federal side of it, but it is under the National Park Service, protection, and if you can get that. But what it does do, Yuma is a great example. We were there. That was our headquarters city on the tour, and it's still a place we've covered. In fact, that's the city that made us go Southwestern, from being a Northeast San Diego magazine to being Southwestern, and then ultimately later we got national and international. But this place is they call it the Great Gateway to the Southwest if you're coming from California. It has old historic Highway 80 that goes from Georgia across to San Diego. It's the oldest route. It's way before Route 66. And it's also the river where Colorado River, the lower crossing of it, or the lower part of the river where this was the crossing where people went to go, one of the easiest places to cross over the river and go to the gold mining times of, go to California and all of that. And the Spaniards used it too, way back when, and of course the Native Americans. This history is so huge. 310 to Yuma, the Yuma Territorial Prison, all of this. They had so much, and they still do. And when we first went there on a media visit with the head of the Visitor Bureau at the time, has since passed, Roger Beadle, rest in peace, he took us out and he showed us, and all we knew was this was a gas stop. And he said, "You need to come with me." And he took us to a part of the river, and you could barely see the river. It was so overgrown from all the agricultural plants and like all the things that had happened with agriculture. All these non-native species had just invaded, and a lot of homeless people were living down there, and you just couldn't see anything. And it was not a place that people could go play, and it's right at the downtown. And he said, "We're going to make this a National Heritage Area, and we're working on it, and here's our start. Here's the hummingbird garden." Plant. It was one tiny plant and a square patch of dirt, and that was it. And we looked at him and we're like, okay. And I'm like, I believe in this, like we're in this, but really he did do this, and the community did it, not just him. Obviously, you have the Yuma Crossing National Heritage Area, Charlie Flynn. I got to give a shout out to him. And they had over 49 agencies work together. Mexico, the Toto'odom Nation, the Kashan Nation. You had, here's Arizona, your communities, business people, over 49 organizations got together. They got the federal designation, and they started rehabilitating the river. And now it's an oasis they have a butterfly garden. The hummingbird garden is incredible. It's one of our favorite places to walk. They have trails, cycling trails, ramadas for families. They have one of the largest interactive playgrounds in the country. They have places to walk your dog and have shade. I mean, it's incredible what they've done. They've managed to save their state parks. At the time, then state parks were under threat. This territorial prison almost got closed down, which was the second most visited attraction in the state of Arizona after the Grand Canyon, was the territorial prison, and they were about to shut it down if it wasn't for everybody coming together. And where they built that hummingbird and butterfly garden happens to be on a disgusting old landfill, and you would never know it today. And they have a solar garden where you can walk around and see what solar plants do to fuel, in a very clean way, fuel your city. So I'm very proud of living there temporarily and being a part of that for so many years and watching this change, and they're still part of it. The arts are part of it. The downtown is part of it. They've restored their history, kept it alive. And you can go see great herons. You can see the little avocets. You can see all these birds, and beavers came back. The beavers came back after all these years of being gone, as soon as they cleaned it up. And it's so, I just want to say you can make these changes. Adam, Bobbi, you both, the stories you've shared with us today are incredible. It just proves we can make changes and do it in a positive way. So thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, my gosh. I'm like, man, let's go change the world. Run out there and see Rambo. Oh, really, really. Everybody, again, Bobbi DePorter, again, we call her the Queen of Excellence. Go to supercamp.com. Again, Supercamp, the world leader in summer academic achievement programs, not only in this country, but around the world, including Kenya, right, Bobbi? There's another connection.
Yes.
Yeah, Kenya. It's amazing what you do, and everyone go to supercamp.com, but also 8keys.org. get connected with that. They're also on Facebook, and get connected. And it's a free family program and a mission to get 50 million kids on board living these 8 keys of excellence that we've been talking about. Again, Adam over, he's on blendradioandtv.com. You'll see him in our expert department, as well as you'll see Bobbi there. And Adam, you're running around doing a lot of consulting, right, for nonprofits?
Yeah, trying to take all that experience I've built over all these years and make nonprofits work better. So I'm happy to help anybody who's needing to get some new vitality going, and also figure out ways to grow, because there's so much work to be done. The more we can grow, the more work we can do, and it's good work. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you both for joining us. Everybody, again, Big Blend Radio airs Monday through Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, Fridays and Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be featuring this with our next article in the June-July issue of Parks and Travel magazine. You can see that at nationalparktraveling.com. And we're going to close with some music. Cool. And this song is from the Tall Man Group, because we love our tall man. 6 tall men, and their music challenge that they do every month, and they create a CD every year. This is off of their 4th album. It's called Strip Down, and it's 1 tall man and 1 instrument. And this is a song from their latest album. It's called No Crisis, and it really goes with everything we're talking about. You can have failure, but you can beat that side of crisis and make a change. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There is no crisis. That's just how life is. And the trick is remembering how to breathe. We're all turning pages as we go through our stages. There is no crisis. That's just how life is. I play the cards that I'm dealt, place them face up on the felt. There ain't no use in wishing that I had an ace. We all get just what we got, so I'll give it my best shot. Place my bet, and when I lose with grace, there is no crisis. That's just how life is. And the trick is remembering how to breathe. We're all turning pages as we go through our stages. There is no crisis. That's just how life is. The future is hard to predict, and the mind is easily tricked. Sometimes I start thinking that I figured it out, but the universe laughs at my plans and turns all my hours to sand. The only place is here, and the time is now. There is no crisis. That's just how life is. The trick is remembering how to breathe. And if you can do it, yeah, you'll probably get through it. There is no crisis. That's just how life is. We're all turning pages as we go through our stages. There is no crisis. That's That's just how life is.